The pale blue sun of Haven cast long shadows across the abandoned human city as Dr. Hana Kim stepped out of her transport shuttle. Her crystalline teammates from the Zethkari research expedition followed behind her, their bodies shimmering in the alien light. The silence here was complete, broken only by the soft hum of their equipment and the whisper of wind through empty streets. 10,000 years had passed since the humans vanished from the galaxy. One day they were there, building colonies and sending messages across the stars. The next day, nothing. No goodbye signals, no battles, no explanations. They simply stopped talking and disappeared, leaving behind empty worlds like this one. Hana adjusted her environmental suit and checked her scanner readings. The device was going crazy, showing energy patterns that should not exist on a dead world. Something was still active down there, buried deep beneath the human ruins. The readings are strongest near the center of the city, she told her team, through the communication system. Whatever the humans left behind, it has been waiting for a very long time. The Zethkari expedition leader, a tall being made of living crystal named Veltar, flickered with curious light patterns. His species had taken over most of this region of space after the humans disappeared. To them, human ruins were just interesting historical sites, nothing more. Proceed carefully, Dr. Kim, Veltar transmitted. Your expertise in human archaeology is why we brought you on this mission. What do you make of these structures? Hana walked down what had once been a main street, looking at the buildings that lined both sides. They were different from the architecture of the three great empires that now ruled the galaxy. The Zethkari built with crystal and energy. The insect-like Vrak grew their cities from living materials. The gas-dwelling Nethvar created structures that existed in multiple dimensions at once. But human buildings were simple, practical, made from metal and stone. They were built for beings who walked on two legs and needed protection from weather and time. There was something sad about them now. Empty windows staring out like blind eyes. As the team moved deeper into the city, Hana noticed something strange. The buildings were not damaged by war or disaster. They looked like their inhabitants had simply walked away one day and never returned. Tables still held dishes. Vehicles sat parked in neat rows. It was as if an entire civilization had decided to vanish in an instant. Here, Hana said, stopping in front of a large building in the city center. The energy readings are coming from underneath this structure. Her scanner showed a massive space beneath the ground, much larger than the building above it. Whatever was down there had been carefully hidden and sealed away. The team found an entrance that led down into darkness, and their lights revealed a corridor that stretched far into the depths. The walls were covered with symbols that Hana had never seen before. Her translation device could not make sense of them, which was unusual. After 10,000 years of studying human ruins, most of their language had been decoded. These markings are different, she said, running her gloved hand over the strange writing. This is not the same human language we have found on other worlds. As they went deeper, the energy readings grew stronger. The air itself seemed to hum, with power that had been stored for millennia. Finally, they reached a massive door that blocked their path. It was made of some kind of metal that their scanners could not identify, and it was sealed tight. But as Hana approached the door, something unexpected happened. Lights began to glow along its surface, and the strange symbol started to pulse with inner fire. The door was responding to her presence, as if it had been waiting for someone to find it. Dr. Kim, came Veltar's urgent transmission from above, ground. We are receiving reports from across the galaxy. Similar energy signatures are appearing at 17 other former human sites. They are all activating at the same time. Hana felt a chill that had nothing to do with the underground air. 17 sites all waking up together after 10,000 years of silence. This was not a coincidence. This was planned. The massive door began to move, ancient mechanisms grinding to life. As it opened, Hana could see into a vast chamber filled with objects that made no sense. Weapons that hummed with contained energy. Vehicles designed for purposes she could not guess. And at the center of it all, a glowing pillar covered with flowing information in that same unknown language. Her communication device crackled with incoming messages from across the galaxy. The three great empires were all reporting the same thing. Human sites were waking up everywhere. Systems that had been dead for 10 millennia were coming back to life. Dr. Kim, Veltar's voice was tight with concern. What did the humans leave behind? Hana stared at the chamber full of incomprehensible technology, at weapons designed for a war that had never happened, at preparations made for a threat that no one understood. The humans had not simply vanished. They had been getting ready for something that was finally beginning to happen. The silence was breaking, and with it, the galaxy was about to discover that humanity's disappearance had been the greatest magic trick in history. They had not died out or fled to distant stars. They had been hiding, waiting, preparing for a day that was now arriving. The long sleep was ending, and the galaxy would never be the same. The cold was the first thing Dr. Jinwoo Park felt as his body slowly came back to life. His eyes opened to soft blue light, and he could hear the quiet hiss of gases escaping from his sleeping chamber. His arms and legs felt heavy, like they belonged to someone else, but feeling was returning bit by bit. "Welcome back, Dr. Park," said a voice that sounded like it came from everywhere at once. "You have been asleep for 9,847 years, 156 days and 14 hours. The awakening sequence is now complete." Jinwoo tried to speak, but his throat was dry and rough. He had known this day would come, but knowing something and experiencing it were very different things. Through the clear wall of his sleeping pod, he could see hundreds of other chambers just like his, stretching away into the darkness of the underground facility. "Show me what happened while we slept," he finally managed to whisper. The room filled with light as holographic displays appeared in the air around him. Images of the galaxy as it was now, 10,000 years after humanity had disappeared. 3. Great empires had grown up in their absence, dividing human space between them like pieces of a cake. The Zethkari hegemony controlled the energy-rich systems near the galactic core. The Vrak swarm had spread across thousands of worlds with their living ships and biological technology. The Nethvar collective ruled the trade routes through hyperspace, their cities floating in the upper atmospheres of gas giant planets. "They think we are extinct," the artificial intelligence continued. "They study our ruins like ancient history, but they do not know what we were preparing for." Jinwoo pulled himself out of the sleeping chamber and stood on shaking legs. His body would need time to remember how to work properly, but his mind was already sharp and clear. The memories were all there, as fresh as if they had happened yesterday, instead of nearly 10,000 years ago. The discovery that had changed everything. The calculations that showed a pattern in the death of galaxies. The realization that something was coming, something that destroyed entire civilizations on a schedule as regular as clockwork. And the desperate decision to hide, to sleep, to wait until the threat arrived so they could fight it. "Status of the other awakening sites?" Jinwoo asked as he walked slowly around the chamber, getting used to movement again. 17 primary facilities are now active. Dr. Hana Kim has made contact at the Haven site. Commander Minho Lee is bringing the military installations online. Captain Soyoung Choi reports that the fleet hidden in the asteroid field is ready to launch. All systems are working as planned. On the planet Haven, Dr. Hana Kim stood inside the underground chamber she had discovered, surrounded by technology that the current galactic empires could not understand. Weapons that did not look like any weapons she knew. Ships with designs that seemed to twist space around them. And everywhere, the strange human writing that was different from anything found in other ruins. Her Zethkari companions were becoming nervous. Their crystalline bodies flickered with patterns of concern as more and more human sites activated across the galaxy. What they had thought was archaeology was turning into something much more serious. "Dr. Kim," Veltar transmitted urgently, "our deep space monitors are detecting movement in the outer systems. Ships are launching from locations we thought were empty space. The humans are not extinct. They have been hiding." Hana nodded grimly as she studied the information flowing across the glowing pillar in the chamber's center. The data was in the new human language, but she was beginning to understand pieces of it. Words like preparation and defense and the coming darkness appeared over and over. "They were not hiding from us," she said quietly. "They were hiding from something else. Something they knew was coming." Across the galaxy, similar scenes were playing out as humanity's long sleep came to an end. In asteroid belts that had seemed empty, massive ships powered up their engines for the first time in millennia. On dead worlds, underground cities began to stir with life as their inhabitants woke from artificial hibernation. Commander Minho Lee stood on the bridge of a warship that had been waiting in the darkness between stars. Around him, his crew was waking up, their faces showing the same mix of relief and determination that he felt. They had gambled everything on this plan, and now they would find out if their sacrifice had been worth it. "Report," he commanded as his officers took their positions. "All battle groups are responding," came the reply. 47 major warships, 200 escort vessels, and the manufacturing stations are beginning production. "We are ready to implement the defense plan." But even as humanity began to wake up, the thing they had been preparing for was already moving. At the edge of the galaxy, in the cold space between stars, something vast and hungry had noticed the sudden activity. It had been traveling for a very long time, following the same pattern it had used to devour countless other galaxies. The hunger had arrived, right on schedule, just as the human calculations had predicted 10,000 years ago. And for the first time in its long existence, it would find a galaxy that was ready for it. The awakening was complete, and the real battle was about to begin. Commander Minho Lee stepped onto the bridge of the massive warship Eternal Vigil as it powered up for the first time in 10,000 years. The ship's systems hummed to life around him, displays showing information that had been collected and stored while humanity slept. His crew moved with practiced efficiency, even though their last drill had been nearly 10 millennia ago. "Status report," Minho commanded, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had spent years planning for this exact moment. Captain Soyoung Choi looked up from her station, her face pale but determined. "All primary battle groups are coming." "Online, sir. We have 47 major warships and 200 smaller vessels ready for combat. The weapon manufacturing ships are already building the specialized equipment we designed." Through the main view screen, Minho could see other human ships emerging from their hiding places. They rose from asteroid fields where they had waited, like sleeping giants. They uncloaked in empty space where they had drifted in silence. Each vessel bore the scars of hasty construction, built not for exploration or beauty, but for a war against something unimaginable. Meanwhile, on the Zethkari homeworld, Dr. Hana Kim stood before the High Council, trying to explain something. That sounded like madness. The crystalline beings flickered with dismissive light patterns as she spoke through her translation device. "You must understand," Hana pleaded. "The thing that is coming is not like any enemy you have ever faced. It does not conquer worlds or capture prisoners. It consumes everything. Every ship it destroys becomes part of its fleet. Every planet it devours makes it stronger and smarter." The leader of the council, a tall crystal being called Prime Resonance, Kethvar, pulsed with skeptical colors. "The humans speak of ghost stories," he transmitted. "Our monitoring systems show only natural phenomena, old stars dying at the end of their lives." "Look at your outer territories," Hana insisted. "Check the pattern of which stars are going dark. The entity we call the Hunger follows the same path every time. It has been destroying galaxies for millions of years, and now it has found ours." Similar conversations were happening across the 3 great empires. On the Vrak homeworld, the insect queens dismissed human warnings as the confused dreams of beings who had slept too long. In the floating cities of the Nethvar Collective, economists calculated that such a massive threat was impossible from a resource management perspective. But in the deep reaches of space, automated human monitoring stations were detecting exactly what their creators had feared. Stars were going dark in a specific pattern, one that matched calculations made 10,000 years earlier with terrifying accuracy. Dr. Jinwoo Park stood in the command center of humanity's most secret facility, watching displays that showed the approaching disaster. The station was hidden in the space between galaxies, where it had been collecting data for millennia while its creator slept. The consumption rate matches our old predictions perfectly, he reported to Commander Minho through a secure communication channel. It started at the galaxy's edge just like we calculated. 6 star systems have gone completely dark in the past week. What about the empires? Minho asked. Are they starting to believe us? The Zethkari are sending investigation fleets to the affected areas. The Vrak Queens have ordered their outer colonies to report any unusual activity. The Nethvar are treating it as a potential trade disruption. None of them understand what they are really facing. As if summoned by their conversation, emergency signals began flooding the communication networks of all 3 empires. The Vrak outer colonies, the ones closest to the galaxy's edge, had stopped responding to all contact attempts. Investigation. Fleets sent to check on them simply vanished, their final transmissions cut off mid-sentence. Captain So-Young Choi watched the tactical displays on her ship as the scope of the disaster became clear. It is not just destroying them, she observed. Look at these energy readings. The Hunger is incorporating their technology, learning from every ship it captures. On the view screen, impossible images appeared. Vrak bioships that had once been organic and beautiful were now twisted into horrible new shapes. Their living hulls pulsed with alien growths, and they moved with a predatory intelligence that was nothing like their original purpose. The 3 empires finally mobilized their fleets as the threat became undeniable. The Zethkari launched their crystal warships, vessels that could shatter planets with focused energy beams. The Vrak sent their evolutionary fleets, ships that could adapt and change during battle. The Nethvar deployed their phase-shifted armadas, vessels that existed in multiple dimensions at once. Within days, all of them were gone. Commander Minho watched the tactical feeds as empire after empire fell to the approaching horror. Every battle teaches it something new, he said grimly. Every weapon they use against it becomes another tool in its arsenal. That is why we prepared the way we did, Dr. Jinwoo replied from his distant station. Our weapons were not designed to fight normal enemies. They were designed to fight something that learns from everything it encounters, something that turns our own strength against us. The human fleet began to move toward the expanding zone of consumption, their ships armed with weapons that defied conventional understanding. Behind them came the survivors, refugee fleets from all 3 empires following the only force that seemed capable of standing against the cosmic nightmare. The Hunger had consumed half the galaxy in a matter of weeks, but now it would face an enemy that had spent 10,000 years preparing for exactly this moment. The screaming came through the communication channels first. Captain So-Young Choi sat on the bridge of the Eternal Vigil, listening to the final transmissions from the Vrak outer colonies as they died. The voices were filled with terror and confusion, reporting things that should not exist. Ships coming out of empty space. One panicked voice reported. They look like our own vessels, but wrong. Twisted. They are not responding to our signals. Then silence. 6 star systems went dark in 3 days. Their suns still burning, but their worlds empty of all life. When the Vrak Queen sent investigation fleets to discover what had happened, those ships vanished too. Their final messages spoke of meeting. Their own warships turned into something horrible and alien. Dr. Jinwoo Park watched the tactical displays from his hidden monitoring station, his face grim with the knowledge of what was coming. The patterns matched their 10,000-year-old calculations perfectly. The Hunger had arrived, and it was following the same destructive path it had used to devour countless other galaxies. The consumption rate is exactly what we predicted, he reported to Commander Minho Lee. It is not just destroying the Vrak ships. It is changing them, incorporating them into its own fleet. Every vessel it captures becomes another weapon in its arsenal. On the main view screen, impossible images appeared. Vrak bioships that had once been beautiful living creatures were now twisted into nightmare shapes. Their organic hulls bulged, with alien growths that pulsed with malevolent intelligence. Wings that had once carried them gracefully through space now moved with predatory purpose. The Zethkari hegemony was the first to respond with military force. Their crystal warships, launched from the core world's vessels that could focus stellar energy into planet-killing beams. Prime resonance. Kethvar led the fleet personally, determined to prove that human warnings were nothing but ancient superstition. They met the Hunger's advance fleet in the Kepler system, a battle that lasted exactly 17 minutes. The Zethkari, energy weapons capable of shattering moons, struck the twisted ships with no effect. Instead, the enemy vessels seemed to absorb the energy, growing brighter and more powerful with each attack. Impossible, Kethvar transmitted as his flagship's weapons failed to damage even the smallest enemy vessel. Nothing can resist our crystal beam technology. His answer came in the form of his own energy weapon, now mounted on a corrupted Vrak bioship, firing back at him with twice the power. The Hunger had not only absorbed the attack but learned from it, improved it, and turned it against its creators. The Nethvar collective deployed their phase-shifted fleets next, vessels that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Their strategy was to attack the enemy from several realities at once, making them impossible to target effectively. It was a tactic that had never failed in conventional warfare. The Hunger adapted within hours. The corrupted ships began to phase shift themselves, existing in the same multiple dimensions as their attackers. But they did it better, appearing in dimensions the Nethavar had never discovered, attacking from angles that should not exist. Captain Soyoung Choi watched the tactical feeds as fleet after fleet fell to the cosmic horror. It learns from every encounter, she observed. Every new weapon becomes part of its arsenal. Every defensive strategy becomes a new way to attack. The worst part was watching the captured ships. Vessels that had belonged to proud civilizations were twisted into extensions of the Hunger's will. Zethkari crystal ships now pulsed with organic growths. Nethvar phase shifters moved with the predatory grace of corrupted biovessels. Each fallen empire's technology was incorporated and improved, making the enemy stronger with every victory. Dr. Hana Kim stood in the refugee camps on New Geneva Station, watching as survivors from all three empires arrived with tales of horror. Families who had escaped in the final moments before their worlds were consumed. Military officers whose fleets had been destroyed in battles that lasted only minutes. "It is not just a weapon," she told Commander Minho during a secure transmission. "It is a collective intelligence. Every ship it captures, every world it consumes adds to its knowledge and ability. It has been doing this for millions of years, learning from every galaxy it destroys." The entity that humanity called the Hunger was revealed to be far worse than even their calculations had predicted. It was not a natural disaster or even a conventional invading force. It was a cosmic intelligence that had perfected the art of consumption across eons of practice. Commander Minho Lee stood on his bridge, watching as the human fleet moved toward the expanding zone of destruction. Behind them came the largest refugee fleet in galactic history, survivors from all three empires who had nowhere else to turn. "Are our weapons ready?" he asked his tactical officer. "All specialized systems are online," came the reply. "The quantum disruptors, the reality anchors, the consciousness shields. Everything we spent 10,000 years developing." "Good," Minho said grimly. "Because conventional warfare has failed completely. Every weapon the empires used against it just made it stronger. Our only hope is that we prepared for exactly this scenario." The human ships moved forward, their hulls scarred from hasty construction but their purpose clear. They carried weapons designed not to fight normal enemies, but to battle something that learned from every encounter. Technology created specifically to wound the unwoundable and resist the irresistible. The Hunger had consumed half the galaxy, but now it would face the only species that had seen it coming and spent 10 millennia preparing for war. The Battle of the Spiral Arm lasted for 3 months and changed the galaxy forever. Commander Minho Lee stood on the bridge of the Eternal Vigil, now surrounded by officers from all 4 species working together for the first time in galactic history. The view screen showed a sight that would have been impossible just months before. Human, Zethkari, Vrak, and Nethvar ships flying in formation against a common enemy. The Hunger had consumed 2/3 of the galaxy by now. Its fleet was a writhing mass of corrupted vessels from every species it had encountered, all bent to its singular will. Twisted Zethkari crystal ships pulsed with organic growths. Corrupted Vrak biovessels moved with mechanical precision. Captured Nethvar phase shifters existed in dimensions that hurt to look at. The core construct is in position, reported Dr. Jinwoo Park from his science station. All our calculations point to the same conclusion. We cannot destroy it completely, but we can trap it in a temporal loop. The question is whether we can get close enough to activate the device. The plan was desperate, born from 10,000 years of preparation for this exact scenario. Using technology that humanity had developed during their long sleep, they would create a bubble in time around the Hunger's central intelligence. The entity would be caught in an endless cycle of the same moment, unable to advance or retreat. But first, they had to reach the center of the enemy fleet. Captain Soyoung Choi led the final assault, commanding a squadron of ships from all 4 species. Her vessel, the Unity, was a hybrid creation built from the best technology each empire could offer. Zethkari energy shields, Vrak adaptive armor, Nethvar phase shift engines, and human quantum weapons all working together. The Hunger threw everything at them as they pushed toward its core. Corrupted fleets that had once belonged to proud civilizations now served as extensions of its will. The twisted ships adapted faster than conventional weapons could target them, learning from each attack and developing counters within minutes. But humanity had not prepared conventional weapons. Their quantum disruptors attacked the enemy on levels that could not be adapted to. Their reality anchors prevented the corrupted ships from phase shifting away from combat. Most importantly, their consciousness shields protected Allied crews from the Hunger's influence. "It is trying to take control of our minds," reported a Zethkari officer, whose crystals were flickering erratically. "I can feel it attempting to corrupt our thoughts." "Hold position," Soyoung commanded. "The human shields are designed specifically for this. Trust the technology." Dr. Hana Kim worked frantically at her station, monitoring the massive device they were carrying toward the enemy's center. The temporal loop generator was humanity's greatest achievement, a weapon that attacked not the body, but the very concept of linear time. 30 seconds to optimal range, she reported. All systems are stable. The device is ready to activate. Around them, the battle raged with an intensity that defied description. Ships from the refugee fleets fought with desperate courage, knowing that this was their last chance. Zethkari vessels focused their remaining energy into coordinated strikes. Vrak bioships adapted their forms in real time to counter enemy attacks. Nethvar phase shifters appeared and disappeared, striking from multiple dimensions. The Hunger's response was overwhelming. For every corrupted ship they destroyed, 2 more took its place. The entity had incorporated technology from hundreds of conquered species, creating combinations that should not exist. Biomechanical hybrids that healed damage instantly. Energy phase constructs that existed partially in multiple realities. Quantum organic weapons that attacked matter and consciousness simultaneously. "We are losing ships too fast," reported Commander Minho from the main battle group. "At this rate, we will not have enough vessels left to maintain the protective formation." "Then we do it now," Soyoung decided. "All ships, maximum acceleration toward the core construct. Everything depends on the next 60 seconds. The Unity and its escort squadron dove into the heart of the enemy fleet, past layers of corrupted vessels that had once belonged to every major civilization in the galaxy. The Hunger's central construct was revealed as a massive structure that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions at once, pulsing with the combined intelligence of countless consumed worlds. "Temporal loop initiating," Dr. Jinwoo announced as the device activated. Reality itself seemed to stutter and bend around the Hunger's core. Space twisted in ways that made no physical sense, and time began to fold in on itself. The entity's central intelligence found itself caught in an endless recursive cycle, experiencing the same moment over and over again, unable to process new information or issue new commands. Across the galaxy, the corrupted fleet simply stopped. Without the guiding intelligence of their master, the twisted ships drifted in space like abandoned toys. The consuming tide that had devoured countless worlds ground to a halt. The battle ended not with explosions or victory cries, but with silence. A silence that felt different from the one that had followed humanity's disappearance 10,000 years earlier. This was not the silence of death, but of hope. 50 years later, Dr. Hana Kim stood before a classroom of young beings from all 4 species. Her hair was silver now, but her eyes still held the intensity of someone who had witnessed the galaxy's darkest hour and its greatest triumph. The Hunger War taught us that survival sometimes requires sacrifice, she told her students. But it also taught us that no challenge is too great when different peoples work together toward a common goal. A young Zethkari student flickered with curiosity. "Will it ever escape the temporal loop, Professor?" Hana smiled. "Perhaps. But if it does, we will be ready. All of us, together." Through the classroom windows, the lights of New Terra Station glowed against the stars. The galaxy had been forever changed, united by humanity's return and the shared experience of facing extinction together.